It was a normal Thursday afternoon in suburban Georgia, the kind where everything feels routine. Kids whining in the cereal aisle, soft pop music over the store speakers, checkout lines moving just slow enough to make you sigh. Tamika Rhodes stood at register 6, her 5-year-old daughter tugging at her sleeve, holding a stuffed giraffe from the seasonal display. "Mama, can I have it, please?" she whispered. "Not today, baby," Tamika said gently, pulling her debit card from her wallet. Her son, Micah, leaned against the cart, watching the gum rack like it held ancient treasures. Behind them stood Carolyn Templeton, mid-50s, pastel sweater draped around her shoulders, pearls tight around her neck. She'd already huffed 3 times, loud enough for everyone around her to hear. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, tapping her heel. Her cart was filled with wine, frozen dinners, and imported cheeses. She looked around impatiently, her lips pressed into a thin line. Tamika didn't flinch. She was used to this kind of tension, the passive-aggressive sighs, the glares when her kids made a noise. But today, something felt different. Then it happened. Carolyn stepped forward, eyes cold, voice loud. "You people always hold up the line. Why don't you just go back to Africa where you belong?" The air froze. The cashier, a teenage boy, dropped the scanner. A woman 2 registers over covered her mouth. Micah gripped the cart tight. Tamika blinked. Her daughter looked up, confused. The store was silent, but not still. 2 shoppers raised their phones. One was already recording. Tamika didn't yell, didn't curse. She simply turned to Carolyn, eyes steady. "Say that again. Louder." Carolyn crossed her arms, defiantly. "I said what I said." Tamika reached down, picked up her daughter, and took Micah's hand. She looked at the cashier. "Cancel my order." "You don't have to do that, ma'am," the boy whispered, eyes wide. "It's fine," Tamika said, voice calm. "Some folks need the spotlight more than I need these groceries." As she turned to leave, a man near the bakery section shouted, "Hey, that's enough." But the moment had already cemented itself. Carolyn scoffed, looking around like she expected applause. Instead, silence. The phones kept recording. Outside, Tamika loaded her kids into the car with shaking hands. Micah whispered, "Mama, what did she mean?" Tamika kissed his forehead. "She don't even know, baby." By the time they got home, the video had already been uploaded. By nightfall, it had over 300,000 views. Carolyn's face was front and center, and the internet was just getting started. By morning, it was everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok. Racist Karen at Georgia grocery store read the captions. Millions watched Carolyn's face twist in contempt as she spat her words. "Go back to Africa," replayed like a broken record, stitched into reaction videos, commentary reels, and morning radio debates. But this wasn't just a fleeting viral moment. People started digging. It didn't take long to connect Carolyn Templeton to her LinkedIn profile, regional manager, First Gate Community Bank. Married, member of the local Rotary Club, Sunday school coordinator. By 9 a.m., First Gate's corporate office was flooded with calls and emails. By 10:23 a.m., they released a statement. "We are aware of the disturbing video and are investigating." By noon, Carolyn was escorted out of her office, box in hand, escorted by HR and security. She still didn't understand what was happening. "This is cancel culture," she hissed into a local news camera waiting outside. "I was provoked. I'm the real victim here." But America wasn't buying it. At home, her daughter Abby sat on the living room floor, eyes red from crying. She was 22, a senior at Kennesaw State, and her phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. "Mom, you have to stop," Abby begged. "Just apologize." Carolyn scrolled through Facebook on her tablet. Her fingers trembled, but her jaw stayed locked. "They're tearing me apart," she whispered. "You said something awful," Abby snapped. "And now you're playing the victim? Do you even see what you did?" Carolyn didn't answer. She stood up, walked over to the window, and pulled the curtain aside. A small group had gathered outside, neighbors, strangers, some holding signs. Peaceful but present. One woman held a cardboard sign that read, "Respect is not optional." Across town, Tamika sat on her porch with her phone buzzing nonstop. News vans had parked 2 blocks down. People she hadn't spoken to in years were messaging her, some apologizing for not speaking up sooner. But Tamika wasn't focused on the headlines. She was watching her daughter draw chalk hearts on the driveway. Micah sat beside her, still asking questions. "Mama, why'd she hate us?" Tamika kept her voice even. "Some people carry poison in their hearts, and when they get scared, they spit it out." The doorbell rang. A man from a local civil rights group stood holding a folder. "We'd like you to speak at next week's town hall," he said. "Folks are listening now." She nodded slowly. "I'll speak, but I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to protect my babies." Back at the Templeton home, Carolyn opened Facebook again. Typed a long post. "I'm sick of being silenced. People are too sensitive these days." She clicked post. Abby stormed out the front door without a word. That night, #Carolyn Templeton trended in 5 countries. But what came next wasn't trending. It was transformation or the chance of it. And Carolyn would soon face the most uncomfortable mirror of all. The church basement was packed. Metal folding chairs lined in rows, fans whirring overhead, a table of bottled waters and off-brand cookies in the back. The flyer had said Community Healing Forum, Real Talk, Real Change. But everybody in the room knew why they were really there. Carolyn Templeton sat in the 3rd row, her purse clutched so tight it looked like it might crack. Her makeup was lighter than usual. She looked smaller somehow, diminished, like someone who hadn't slept in days. She hadn't. A week of unemployment, non-stop voicemails, and her daughter barely speaking to her had finally shaken something loose. Not guilt, not yet, but confusion, a deep, aching kind. The pastor stepped to the mic. "Tonight isn't about shouting," he said calmly. "It's about facing what we've buried." Then he called the names. "Tamika Rhodes, would you mind coming up?" Tamika stood slowly. The room shifted, a hush rolling across the crowd like a wave. She wore a simple blouse, jeans, and a soft expression that somehow hit harder than any raised voice ever could. Her voice didn't tremble. It didn't rise. It carried. "I wasn't planning to come," she began. "I didn't want my children to see me break down in front of strangers." A few heads nodded. "But after everything, I realized silence would only let this kind of thing keep happening." She looked directly at Carolyn. "My daughter is 5. She doesn't know what go back to Africa means yet. But one day she will. And when she does, she's gonna ask me why you said it." Carolyn couldn't hold her gaze. Her eyes fell to the floor. Tamika went on. "I don't need an apology. What I need is for my children to be safe in public. I need them to know they belong, in the grocery store, in school, in boardrooms, in this country." The crowd broke into soft applause. It wasn't performative. It was painful, honest. Carolyn's heart thudded in her chest. Her fingers trembled. She looked around. Faces staring, waiting, some curious, some tight with anger. She stood up. The mic was still warm when she took it. I'm not a racist," she started, voice brittle. Silence. "But I was angry. The store was loud. I was tired. Someone in the back coughed. Hard. Carolyn's voice cracked. "I don't even know why I said it." Tamika watched. Calm. Still. "I've lost my job, my friends won't return my calls, and my own daughter won't look me in the eye," Carolyn continued. "I've been humiliated." She paused, looking at Tamika again. "But maybe I needed to be." Her voice fell to a whisper. "I'm sorry." Nobody clapped. Not right away. But the room breathed again. After the meeting, Carolyn slipped out a side door. No interviews. No TikToks. Just night air and the sound of her own footsteps. In the back row, Abby stood quietly, watching her mother disappear into the dark. Inside, Tamika bent down to tie her daughter's shoe. "You were strong up there," a woman whispered. Tamika nodded. It wasn't about being strong. It was about being seen. The video of Carolyn's apology never went viral. No retweets, no hashtags, but something shifted in that church basement. Something deep and quiet. The kind of change that doesn't come from shame but from facing it. 2 weeks passed. The headlines faded. The hashtags moved on. The world, as it always does, found something else to be outraged about. But for Carolyn Templeton, the silence was louder than the noise ever was. She stayed home mostly. Abby had moved in with a friend. The blinds stayed shut. Her phone, once buzzing with work calls and lunch invites, sat face down on the kitchen table. Dead. Ignored. Every so often, she opened Facebook just to scroll through the wreckage. Her name was still there, immortalized in screenshot compilations and stitched TikToks. But people weren't talking anymore. They were just done with her. And that's what hurt the most. She had thought, foolishly, that this would blow over. That people would forget. But forgiveness doesn't come without reflection. And Carolyn, for the first time in her life, had started reflecting. That's why she showed up, quietly, to the community center on 12th and Monroe. It was a Saturday morning. A small sign outside read, "Empathy Circle. Building understanding across divides." No cameras, no press, just folding chairs and conversation. Tamika stood near the front, greeting guests. She didn't flinch when she saw Carolyn walk in. She didn't smile either, just nodded. Carolyn sat in the back, listened as a teenage boy shared what it felt like to be watched in every store he entered. As an older man spoke of being pulled over just blocks from his house, 3 times in 1 month. As a young woman, not much older than Abby, said she was tired of having to prove her worth before being seen as human. Carolyn didn't speak. Not that day. But she came back the next Saturday. And the one after that. And 3 weeks later, she handed Tamika a letter. It wasn't a public statement. It wasn't a PR stunt. It was handwritten. It said, "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know. I see it now. The harm. The arrogance. The silence I wore like armor. I don't know what I'm becoming. But I know I don't want to be who I was." Tamika read it, folded it, said nothing, but she kept it. Months later, they'd cross paths again at a school supply drive. Tamika was organizing. Carolyn was volunteering. They didn't hug. They didn't cry. They just packed backpacks side by side. 2 women who had once stood on opposite sides of a moment that nearly broke them both. And maybe that was enough. The video faded from the feed like they always do, but the impact didn't. See, Carolyn thought it was just a moment. Just words. A slip of the tongue in a bad mood. But moments like that aren't accidents, they're mirrors. They show us what's already been growing in the dark. For Tamika, it wasn't the first time. Probably wouldn't be the last. But this time, the world saw it. And more importantly, the one who said it couldn't hide from it. Carolyn lost her job, her comfort, her illusions. But maybe, just maybe, she gained something too. The beginning of self-awareness. Because sometimes the real consequence ain't public shame. It's private change. And the real courage? It wasn't in the apology. It was in the silence that followed it, where someone had to decide who they wanted to be moving forward. The lesson? Hate might go viral, but healing don't need to. It just needs to start. 1 room. 1 reckoning. 1 woman willing to listen. And 1 mother strong enough not to yell, but to stand.